There are rituals that don't just open doors. They take something. They demand something back. They leave marks you never really get rid of. Today you're going to hear 5 horror stories about rituals where the price isn't symbolic. It's real, it's human, and sometimes it costs a life. Like in the story you're about to hear, where a group of teenagers messed around with a forbidden game inside their school, and something answered. But before we start, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any terrifying stories. And tell me in the comments which city or country you're watching from. At first, I couldn't even pronounce the name of the game right. Some people called it Kokuri-san. Others mumbled it like they were afraid to say it out loud. I still remember the dim school hallway, the damp smell of the floor after that day's rain, and the unsettling feeling that this wasn't just some teenage game. We were freshmen, all of us, too curious, too reckless, too sure of ourselves. In our minds, none of it was real. Just another internet urban legend passed around in hushed conversations. But there are supernatural experiences you can't unsee, and this one was the most traumatic of my entire life. It's wild to think it all started with a piece of paper, a pencil, a coin, and 5 kids who thought they could play with opening doors to the unknown in an empty school on a stormy night, the wind slamming the windows like something was trying to get in. In the AV room, there was this long table. We turned off the lights, leaving only the faint glow from the hallway seeping through the half-open door. We set up the paper the traditional way, just like we'd found online. Yes, no, the Japanese alphabet, numbers. A 10-yen coin Josh had kept as a souvenir from his dad's old trip. I remember my friend sliding his phone over to show us the tutorial, and honestly, it gave me chills right then. Not kid stuff fear. It was this negative energy, like it was vibrating in the air. The feeling of being watched hit me before we even started. I tried to ignore it, but it was like something was standing right behind us, near the door, waiting for us to mess up. I know it sounds crazy, but I swear it felt like a presence, hovering over our shoulders, ready to step in the second we made the wrong move. The first few minutes were just dumb jokes. Who had a crush on who? Who stood a chance with the bio teacher? Who was gonna pass the year? Stupid stuff. The coin moved, but we figured it was just nerves and the pressure of our fingers. We treated it like a game, but the mood shifted fast, cold, heavy, suffocating. When Ryan decided to ask something none of us saw coming, he was only 15 at the time, and he laughed as he asked, "Kokuri-san, is anyone here going to die young?" The air turned to ice. It was like the room had been sucked dry. The coin slid with a force no one at that table could have faked with just their fingertips. It shot straight to the number 20, then to yes. Dead silence. The mood was ruined. Every smile vanished. The wind slammed the door shut, and the hallway went darker. I felt the floor, yes, the floor, vibrate slightly, like a machine had just powered on downstairs. That feeling of being watched turned into certainty. We weren't alone. Something was there with us. Something was answering. Something wanted to keep going. The coin started moving again, like it was about to spell out a name, but before it could, the door burst open. A senior we barely knew stormed in, nearly kicking the paper out from under our hands. He said one thing, his voice sharp and panicked. "You guys are idiots." He ripped the paper off the table, crumpled it, and tossed it into the metal trash can in the corner. He didn't just stop the game. He destroyed it. No closing the ritual, no thanking Kokuri-san, no asking it to leave, no finishing anything. He just cut the connection mid-session. For a second, we actually felt relieved, like someone had pulled the plug. But when I stood up, I still felt that weight, that energy lingering, like something had been pulled through and was now loose in the room. I looked at the glass door leading to the courtyard, and I saw a figure standing in the rain, staring right at me. It wasn't anyone from school. It couldn't be. A thin woman, motionless in the downpour, no umbrella, just watching. I blinked, and she was gone. The days that followed, the school became a hotspot for weird stuff. People started seeing shadows in the halls. The history teacher fell down the stairs out of nowhere and broke her arm. Some say she saw someone calling her from below, but there was no one there. The janitor swore he saw figures moving between the gym lockers, even though there was no physical space for anyone to be there. The administration banned any talk of ghosts, rituals, Kokuri-san, all of it. We got called into the office and chewed out. But no amount of scolding could undo what we'd done that night, because the ritual wasn't closed. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you can't open a door to the paranormal and just walk away. When Ryan turned 20, I tried to convince myself that night had no real meaning. I tried to live my life and forget about it. But on the night of his birthday, he got into a motorcycle accident. He wiped out on a simple turn, a road he took every single day. He hit a pole and died instantly. I got the call just after 5 in the morning. My body went cold, just like it had in that AV room on that rainy night. The number 20, the word yes, the prophecy. We didn't choose this outcome, we unleashed it. Since his funeral, I hear strange noises every time I pass by a school at night, and I can never walk into an empty gym or classroom without feeling that same crushing weight on my back. I can't explain it, but it's like that thin woman is still out there, waiting for another question, another open door, another coin on a piece of paper, ready to fulfill another prophecy. Everyone's older now, working, living their own lives. Some don't even believe in it anymore. But I remember every detail like it was yesterday. You don't forget the feeling of being watched by something faceless, something that should have never been called. That's why I say, never mess with what you don't understand. Never treat a ritual like it's a game. Because some things answer, some things cross the line from curiosity to reality. And some prophecies aren't symbolic. They're real. They demand payment. They come true, and once they do, there's no going back. Pretty disturbing, right? What did you think of the story? What score from 0 to 10 would you give it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. That prophecy coming true shows that some rituals don't just open doors, they come with a set destiny. And there are other rituals that don't say anything at all. They just let whatever's on the other side walk in. Like in the next story, where two presences literally sat beside a girl without asking permission. I needed to test that limit. Not because I was brave, not because I wanted to show off. It was more like this nagging feeling in the back of my mind, almost like a demand, like something unseen was pushing me to go all the way. And before I knew it, I was already sitting on the floor, the room lights off, a thick towel nailed over the window, and my friend's phone showing 1:27 a.m. We just had to wait 3 more minutes to start. I was shaking before the ritual even began, but it wasn't just fear. It was this mix of anxiety and the creeping sense of being watched, even before the door was opened. And deep in my chest, there was this strange certainty that something was about to go wrong. But I kept taking deep breaths, like I was aligning my consciousness to receive whatever was coming. I clutched a small worn teddy bear, the one I'd had since I was a kid, because they said it would keep me grounded during rituals like this. They said it could be anything, as long as it had personal history, emotional weight, and served as a mental anchor to keep me from blacking out, passing out, or losing control. I remember the cold, not the kind from wind or air conditioning. It was still, trapped in the room, like the temperature had plummeted from the inside out. I felt it in my legs, my shoulders, like I was sitting on a block of ice. The house was silent, but I could feel something outside the back door preparing to come in. We'd chosen the most isolated room because they said spirits enter more easily and feel more at ease that way. And yeah, I know how that sounds. I used to think it was ridiculous too, until that moment. Because one thing is laughing it off when you're sitting in the living room, lights on, street noise outside. Another thing entirely is being there, in the dark, feeling the negative energy thick in the air, realizing your body is reacting without your permission. I'd napped earlier, an hour and a half, the so-called restorative sleep they talked about in the forums. I'd sleep for real after the ritual, but not right away, so I wouldn't go into it weak. And I felt weirdly awake, alert, like I'd woken up from a nightmare, but without the dream. My friend was there as backup, my safety net. She sat farther away, leaning against the wall, phone in hand. She wasn't participating, just observing. If she saw me stuck in some dangerous state, she'd pull me out. And yeah, we knew it sounded over the top, even dramatic. But what scared me was how casually the people who taught us this ritual talked about others getting trapped in their own fear, needing to be shaken back to reality. And I didn't believe any of it. Until the cold set in, and the silence grew heavy. The house had belonged to an old family, and that room had a history. Screams, fights, people being taken away. I didn't know if it mattered or if it was just coincidence, but at exactly 1:30 a.m., my body locked up like I was waking up inside a horror movie. Then I lit 2 candles, one on the left, one on the right, and positioned the 2 mirrors facing each other, creating that endless corridor. I remember the flames flickering, but it wasn't from a draft. It was like they were trembling from within, like the wax itself was vibrating. The room got even darker because the candles gave off so little light, and the mirror corridor just looked like a dark line, repeating into nothing. I started noticing small, strange things, like faint shadows moving behind the reflections. Subtle, but repeated. About 2 minutes in, something changed. The negative energy in the air spiked, like something had come in through the back door. I didn't hear the door open, didn't hear footsteps, no sound. But the feeling was undeniable. Like 2 presences had walked down the hall and taken a seat, one in each chair beside me. I hadn't placed those chairs there by accident. The ritual required them. And I felt the left chair dip slightly. My heart raced and I squeezed the teddy bear like it was the only thing keeping me conscious. My friend watched me, but she didn't say a word, and I didn't look at her. My focus was straight ahead. Whispers started up softly, like someone was talking about me right there, live in another language. A language I didn't recognize. It was like they were choosing their words carefully, but I couldn't understand a thing. I just felt that the presence on the left was stronger, heavier. The one on the right was quieter, more passive, maybe just watching. My body froze, not psychologically. I couldn't move. I couldn't turn my head, couldn't let go of the teddy bear. All I could do was breathe fast and stare into the endless mirror corridor as the cold deepened. It was like the air was thickening, and I thought I had it under control because my friend was there. But in reality, I realized I was alone. The whole world had vanished, and in that moment I understood this wasn't some teenage dare. This was real. This was a supernatural experience that messes with your mind. And I realized I wasn't in charge anymore. I don't know how long I stayed frozen like that. All I know is that at some point, I started to feel like someone was slowly dragging a finger down my left arm. Not scratching, just touching. And that touch made my whole body want to panic. I tried to say something, but my voice wouldn't come out. I tried to plead for help with my eyes, but my friend seemed far away, like she was watching through a phone screen, not sitting right in front of me. My body shook, and I wanted to cry, but not even tears would come. I felt like I was slipping away from myself at that light touch, because it wasn't supposed to be physical. It wasn't supposed to feel like skin on skin. But I did, and whatever was on the left seemed to like my reaction. I could almost feel a smile coming from there, a smile with no face. When my friend realized I was too far gone, too paralyzed, she grabbed a bottle of water and splashed it on my face. Only then could I gasp for air and let out a muffled scream I didn't even recognize as my own. It was like waking up from a nightmare. I fell to the side, nearly knocking over a candle, and started choking. My hands were so stiff it took me a while to let go of the teddy bear. It was damp with sweat, and my hand ached like I'd been gripping it too hard. And then I cried, not out of sadness, out of relief, because in that moment I realized that if she hadn't pulled me out, I would have stayed trapped in that feeling of being watched. I would have stayed there while the presences kept talking about me. The ritual was over, but it wasn't really over. I thought the worst was behind me, that if I took deep breaths, showered, and waited a few more hours, everything would be fine. But the real problem wasn't the ritual itself. It was what came after. Because when I finally went to sleep just before dawn, I started having the worst nightmares of my life. Not normal nightmares. It was like every fear I had was amplified. I dreamed of my own house filled with spirits, walking the halls like they owned the place. I dreamed of the teddy bear breathing heavily while I slept, and I felt like I was being tortured inside my dreams, like they had free rein to play with me in there. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, and when I tried to go back to sleep, it was like I was being pulled right back into the same place. It was cyclical, and I realized I had no control at all. I spent weeks afraid to sleep. I avoided thinking about the faceless smile, and I didn't make eye contact with mirrors for a long time. Mirrors became triggers. I felt like if I stared too long, I'd see someone sitting there with me. I felt like someone could hear me. I felt like I'd opened a door I didn't know how to close. And that's when I realized true regret doesn't come during the ritual. It comes after. When the ritual becomes a memory, but the feeling of being watched never leaves. When you realize you've left a crack open for something to get in. So I'm telling you for real, don't do it. No matter how prepared you think you are, no matter who told you it'll be fine. Once you put out candles, mirrors, and something that represents you emotionally, you're offering more than you think. You're letting something in. And once it's in, it doesn't necessarily leave. I never repeated it. And I never want to again. And if I could erase the night I let two presences sit beside me like they were invited, I would. Because to this day, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I still feel that same sudden cold. And I don't know if it's just traumatic memory, or if I still have visitors I can't see, but I feel it. And that feeling follows you like a shadow. Like that light touch on my arm, the one I'll never forget. Creepy, right? And the worst part about this kind of ritual is a detail almost nobody understands. Once that door opens, you don't control what comes through. That connection with the occult slips through the night and uses anything it can to manifest. Just like in the story you're about to see, where a mirror stopped being a reflection and turned into a window. I'm 34 today, and I say that because to this day I still avoid big mirrors when the house is dead silent. I especially avoid hallway mirrors when I'm walking through alone, not because I think I'll see my reflection, but because I get this feeling that there'll be another reflection right behind me. It's something that stuck with me from way back. And it's wild how certain childhood games, especially the ones that involve rituals, can leave a mental scar that never really fades. It happened one weekend at a friend of my family's rural house. We were there because a friend of my mom's was throwing a birthday party for her daughter. The place was normal, nothing special, but it had one detail. The house had a basement. One of those typical family home basements, cold cement floor, shelves with old tools, and an ancient freezer pushed against the wall. And me, at 13 years old, I was in that phase where I wanted to impress people with creepy stories. I'd found something that seemed perfect for that. The week before, in the school library, I was browsing the shelves for a comic book when I saw something that didn't belong there. I can't explain why, but the cover was totally different from the other books. It was this old beat-up occult book. Yellowed pages, torn cover, like something from another time. I remember the physical sensation I felt when I pulled it off the shelf. A chill. Not fear exactly, but that wrong energy like, this is forbidden, but I need to know. The book was full of stuff about ghosts, rituals, invocations, urban legends, and I spent the most time on the chapter about Bloody Mary. It had specific instructions. How to do it, how many times to say her name, even a recommended time. And I found it fascinating. It was the kind of thing that messes with a kid's curiosity. And at the same time, just reading it made me feel like I was being watched, because the ritual was too simple to be fake. Just you and a mirror. And who doesn't have a mirror at home? I told a couple of friends at school about it, and I remember one of them said, Bloody Mary was just some old American legend, that it wouldn't work here. And that stuck with me. Why wouldn't it work here? The first chance to test it came at that birthday party in the rural house. Everyone was there, kids playing, adults chatting on the porch, the whole relaxed weekend vibe. And me with that book in my backpack, feeling like I had this secret. I was already thinking about how to bring it up with the younger kids to try the ritual. It's the kind of behavior I can't even recognize in myself now. But at 13, I just wanted to test something dangerous, something that felt real and show off that I knew something others didn't. The first attempt was in the house bathroom. The lights were all on because the birthday girl's dad came in with us laughing, saying he wanted to see us freak out. We turned off the bathroom light for a few seconds, and I started saying the name. Nothing happened. The dad just laughed and said, "You gotta say it louder." But I knew it wouldn't work like that. The book said it had to be in total darkness, and I got this weird feeling, like we were wasting our shot. It was almost like the spirit was right outside the door, waiting for the right conditions. The first try was a joke, but I wasn't about to let it end there. Later that night, after the adults went to bed, I managed to gather 5 kids. They were between 10 and 12. I was the oldest. And that's when I felt this strange power, leading a supernatural experiment. I suggested we go down to the basement. The house had an internal staircase that led straight there, and the basement was freezing. I remember the chill. I got goosebumps the second I stepped down. Total silence, no sounds at all. Down there was an old sink and a small mirror fixed to the wall. I remember that sight like it was yesterday. The mirror, the sink, and us standing in a line, each holding our phones with the flashlights off. Then I felt the tension building. We lit a single candle because I wanted just a sliver of light. The candle sat on a shelf, casting that yellow glow, and I said it was time to do the ritual for real. We stood in front of the mirror, 5 kids, me in the front, and started saying her name. It's crazy how your mind starts playing tricks when you're in the dark and silent. And it was 75 repetitions. I counted every single one, didn't skip any. It got more and more intense because with each repetition, I felt stronger that something was watching us. And when we got close to the end, I started feeling a different kind of cold. Not the cold of the room. It was like an internal cold, like something was draining the energy from the space. It was a real sensory shift, an intense supernatural experience. My breathing got shallow. I knew we were close, and when I said the name for the last time, something just changed. First, I saw a white glow in the corner of the mirror, like someone was turning on a flashlight inside it. I remember blinking hard, trying to see if it was just my eyes playing tricks, but it didn't go away. Then, like that glow was making space, a face appeared. Totally pale, no hair. The skin was almost see-through, and the eyes, just black holes, impossibly deep. The mouth was a black void too. It didn't look like a normal woman. It was something ghostly. But the worst part? The face wasn't just appearing. It was looking at us. And in that second, I felt this negative energy take over my whole body. It was like that mirror became the border between our world and hers. And we just opened the door. No one had to say a word. Everyone screamed at once. The kids started shoving each other, running for the stairs. I was the last one up, and when I turned to run, I felt, physically, clearly, like something was right behind me, like someone was millimeters from my neck. When I got upstairs and turned on the hallway light, my heart was pounding. We locked ourselves in a bedroom, shaking, trying to process what just happened. Everyone described the same face, the same pale skin, the same black holes for eyes. It wasn't mass hysteria. It was real. We'd all seen something not of this world. It was the kind of experience that stays with you forever because you realize there's no protection when you decide to call something from the dark. I went home and hid that book. I didn't want to look at it anymore. Eventually, I returned it to the library, pretending nothing had happened. But the damage was done. Now, as an adult, I avoid any kind of ritual. I even avoid jokes like running my finger across a mirror in the dark. And the worst part, sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night and go to the kitchen for water, I pass by the bathroom door, and I feel like the mirror's reflection, even in the dark, is waiting for me. Like that face is still there. Some kind of spiritual echo stuck in a plane I don't understand. I lived that night. I saw that thing, and nothing anyone says will ever unsee it for me. There are forces that weren't meant to be tested. There are things that shouldn't be called. I know when I was 13, I just wanted to push a boundary, play with innocent fear. But the price came later. Terrifying, right? And the craziest part is that some people, even knowing rituals give something back, still try them alone. And sometimes the price is physical. The story you're about to hear is about someone who tried to challenge an entity on their own and felt a pain so real it was like being stabbed. But before we continue, if you've made it this far, it means you're enjoying the stories. So hit the like button to let YouTube know you like this kind of content and don't want to miss any more horror stories. I need to tell you something up front, and I know it's going to sound weird, but I've got to make this clear right from the start. I didn't play this ritual because I believed in it. I did it to prove that none of it had any power. I wanted to show myself that internet rituals were just a joke. But now, when I think back to that night, I realize that's when my perception of reality shattered. And honestly, to this day, I don't know if I finished the game or if it's still going on. The house was dead silent. I took the paper, wrote my full name, grabbed the candle and the matches, and sat in the living room waiting for the clock to hit 11:59. I can't explain why, but in that minute before midnight, the air felt heavier. It wasn't just fear. It was that feeling of being watched, like something was already there before I even started. The bad energy began before the first knock. Midnight struck. I stood up and walked to the front door. I placed the paper on the floor and knocked 22 times. I didn't rush it. I knocked just like the rules said, slow and steady, feeling each thud of my hand echo through the wood. On the 22nd knock, I turned the key and blew out the candle, just like the ritual demanded. When I relit it and stepped back inside, I felt a cold creep up my spine like an ice blade. That was the first immediate supernatural experience. I even remember thinking, my body is reacting like there's someone in here with me. And from the very first minute, I felt a presence moving through the house, unhurried, like it was exploring the place. The candle flickered, but there was no wind. It was like the flame was trying to warn me about something. The silence felt alive. The game had begun, and I had until 3 a.m. to survive. I started walking through the house with the candle in hand, like I was on some kind of patrol. I felt ridiculous, but at the same time, I couldn't stay still. When I looked back, I swore I saw shadows slithering along the walls, like they were testing my fear. The floor creaked, not my imagination. It sounded like heavy, slow footsteps coming from upstairs, like something had woken up and was now making its way down, step by step. I tried to ignore it, but then I looked at the wooden staircase and saw a dark mass at the top, motionless, like the outline of a body. No face, no real shape, just a thick, shadowy density, like pooled smoke. When I realized what I was seeing, I froze. The feeling of being watched was so real I stopped breathing for a few seconds. My mind scrambled for a logical explanation, but my body already knew. That thing was there. I took a step back. I knew if I went up those stairs, I wouldn't come back down. There's no other word for it. That was an entity. I tried to follow the rules. Don't hide. Don't let the candle go out. Don't stay in one place too long. But I still didn't get it. This game isn't about completing tasks. It's about enduring. It's about the house becoming its territory and you trying not to get touched. At one point, my candle went out for no reason. No wind, no open doors, no draft. It was like a cold finger had pressed against the flame and snuffed it out. And immediately, I felt a sharp pain in my side, like someone had stabbed me without warning. It was real, physical pain. I almost dropped the matches. I struck one, then another, then a third, a fourth, but nothing. The pain kept getting worse. I knew if I hesitated any longer, I'd pass out. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed another candle from the drawer, and finally got it lit. The second the flame caught, the pain vanished like it had never been there. I sat on the floor, heart pounding, trying to catch my breath. That's when I understood. It wasn't just messing with me. It was testing me. After that, I started hearing things that didn't seem to come from anywhere real. Soft giggles like kids running through the house, but there were no kids. I live alone. The laughter seemed to come from inside the walls. I leaned against the living room wall, and I swear, it felt like someone had pressed their face against the other side and screamed silently, just to see if I'd notice. The wall was ice cold, and goosebumps spread down my arm. When 3 a.m. hit, the ritual was technically over. I sat on the couch, exhausted and shaking, repeating to myself, "It's over, it's over, it's over," but it wasn't. Days later, things got even stranger. The candle going out? I could chalk that up to coincidence, but what I saw the following week had no logical explanation. I was in my bedroom in the middle of the night when I saw a cat walk into the hallway. I don't own a cat. It was small, black, and looked real. I heard its paws tapping on the floor. When I got up to look, it was gone. Not like it ran away, it just didn't exist anymore, like it had evaporated. And when I went back to my room, I felt a weight on the edge of the bed, like something had sat down there. I locked up. It was the same bad energy from that night. It was like the game was still open. After that, the noises became constant. Footsteps upstairs, things falling in the kitchen, objects moving on their own. One night, I heard someone walking down the hallway and stopping at my bedroom door. They didn't open it. They just stood there. And I felt that presence pressing against the air, like it was deciding whether to come in. I know a lot of people think the midnight game is just a joke, but when you do it alone, with no one to share the fear, you realize there's something there that doesn't behave like imagination. It's not fiction. It's not delusion. It feels alive. It feels curious. And it never seems satisfied with the terror it's already caused. The house changed after that night. It's not just a place anymore. It's like it turned into a testing ground, an ongoing supernatural experiment. And I feel like there are things I did in those early morning hours that I can't undo. I don't know if I ended the game the right way. I don't know if it left. Sometimes, I wake up in the middle of the night and feel that same pressure in the air, like it's still moving through the house. And there are nights when I wake up at exactly 3 a.m., for no reason. Every time it happens, I think about that dark mass at the top of the stairs, and I wonder if it came down while I was asleep. So if you're thinking about doing this ritual alone, don't. Don't play with things you can't turn off afterward, because the midnight game doesn't end when you think it's over. It ends when it decides, and it might never decide. Scary, right? Did you feel it too? Tell me what you thought in the comments. Everything I'm about to tell you only makes sense after I realized the biggest mistake wasn't doing the ritual. The biggest mistake was not finishing it. And that's the kind of thing nobody warns you about. Because when people talk about rituals, they only talk about the part where you start. Nobody talks about what comes after. Nobody talks about the real consequences. Because when you open a door that was never meant to be opened, there's no exit button. And I know this in a way that destroyed my life, my sleep, my sanity, and the lives of 3 other people. People who now live scattered, each pretending to have a normal life, but each still carrying a shadow behind them. And that shadow is always the same. A girl, a 5th person. I was a college student living in a dorm, one of those old buildings with too much history and not enough maintenance. At the start of the semester, there was that energy of people trying to fit in, curiosity, stupid dares, the kind of games you play when you think you're an adult, but still act like a teenager. One day, someone mentioned room 408, the only one that stayed empty every year. Nobody could last more than 2 weeks in there without requesting a transfer. They said strange things happened there, that a presence would appear in the early hours of the morning, that there was built-up negative energy, a constant feeling of being watched, the kind of legends that circulate in old campuses. But here's the thing. Everyone talked about it like it was fact, not some freshman ghost story. Everyone spoke like it was real, and that messed with our heads. I had 3 close friends, Jake, Lisa, and Ryan. They were skeptics for the most part. We laughed at those stories. But the truth is, when you're a skeptic and you want to feel something different, you push your luck. And that's how Jake found, who knows where, a supposed Japanese ritual for summoning a 5th presence into a closed space. The ritual seemed ridiculous, Each of us in a corner of the room, lights off, phones turned off, and we had to walk slowly, each making a quarter-circle turn toward the center, like we were creating a path for something to enter. That was it. No candles, no blood, no strange words. Nothing. Just positioning, just coordination, just movement. And I think that's what convinced us it was safe. Because it was too simple to be real. When something is simple, you don't sense the risk. You think there's no danger. Because our brains associate danger with complexity. But the real danger is the simple stuff. What comes in easy doesn't leave easy. We snuck into room 408 late at night. The room was empty. No bed, no desk, just old flooring and peeling walls. The moment we turned off the lights, I felt the air change instantly. I'm not exaggerating. It was like the humidity had suddenly spiked. The smell was different. And I remember Lisa asking if anyone felt a targeted cold, like a concentrated breeze in one spot. I felt it, but I didn't answer. We were in challenge mode. Nobody wanted to be the first to show fear. We took our positions in the four corners. Silence, and we started walking in a circle. Slowly, almost dragging our feet, an inch at a time. At first, it was ridiculous, like a badly choreographed dance. But by the third turn, the air got heavy. Ryan choked, like dust had gone up his nose. Jake said he was starting to feel dizzy. Lisa said she heard something behind her, like a light footstep. And then we all clearly heard something impossible. A footstep, but not from any of us. A step coming from the center of the room, like someone was there. That's when I realized we weren't four anymore. There was a fifth breathing with us. I felt the presence like a cold energy, but not the kind from an air conditioner. It was a cold that came from inside our skin, like our bodies had shrunk. We froze. We stopped moving. And that was the fatal mistake, because the one rule of the ritual was start and finish. And we only started. Lisa turned on her phone on impulse. A dim light lit up the center of the room, and we saw something we'd never forget. A little girl standing in the middle. Small, with long hair down to her chin, her head slightly tilted, hollow eyes. There was nothing in her eyes, just empty blackness. And that expressionless face still staring at us without blinking. I could feel she wasn't just an image. I could feel a directed intention in every movement she didn't make, like she was sizing us up without needing to look at each of us separately. She was the negative, icy presence everyone had been talking about all along. Jake screamed first, and after that, it was a domino effect. Everyone ran. I bolted for the door, tripped in the hallway, nearly tumbled down the stairs. We stumbled out of the building, gasping, pale, trying to pretend it was just hysteria. The problem was, the girl came with us. Not walking, not floating, no drama. She just started following us. It started with the little things the next day. Glasses falling with no one touching them, doors slamming on their own, footsteps in empty hallways, and the worst, synchronized nightmares. I can't explain it, but we all started having the same dream. The girl standing in the center, watching, and us, stuck in the corners, like we were still trapped in that ritual. And in every dream, there was no end. Never an end. Just the four of us in the corners, locked in that same hellish choreography. We tried to ignore it, tried to move on, but we couldn't, because she was everywhere. In the bathroom mirror, in the window's reflection, in the corner of the room. It wasn't a collective hallucination, because when one of us saw her, the others did too. And the feeling of being watched became constant. I started being afraid to sleep because every time I closed my eyes, I felt breath on my neck, like someone was right behind me. Jake was the first to lose it. He tried to perform a reverse ritual, finding random tutorials online. He said we needed to close the path we'd opened. He locked himself in the dorm bathroom, turned off the lights, and tried to do something none of us even knew existed. But the idea of reversing something we barely understood only made things worse. After that night, he started hearing voices calling his name in empty places. He couldn't sleep without the lights on. He failed the semester. Lisa started seeing the girl in public places, in the library, in the cafeteria line, at the classroom door. always standing, always watching, and always closer. One day, Lisa passed out in the middle of class because she felt the girl touch her shoulder. No one believed her. They said she was just anxious, but I saw her. I knew it wasn't just anxiety. Ryan tried to distance himself. He left the dorm, moved back in with his family, but it didn't help. One night, he texted me saying the girl was in his backyard, just staring through his window. He moved out of state, and to this day, he says sometimes he blasts music, leaves the TV on, tries to distract himself with everything, but there's always that second when his brain realizes he's not alone. And me? I tried to keep going to class, but I stopped having a normal life. I'd look to the side and feel a random cold spot. I'd sleep and feel someone sit on my bed. I'd shower and see the bathroom door open slowly on its own, like someone was coming in to watch me. The problem is, the ritual wasn't just about summoning. It was about inviting. And when you invite, you have to say goodbye. And we never said goodbye, so she stayed. And now, she's part of us. She's the fifth person. No matter where we are, she's there. This is the kind of supernatural experience no one should mess with, because there's no escape, no resolution, no end. We're haunted by something that came in because we called it. And there's no easy exorcism for something you've let into your own life. And it's wild to think that even in a school setting, such an innocent ritual ended up becoming something that followed those people for the rest of their lives. And even stranger to realize that it doesn't matter if you're alone or with a group, like in that haunted room. There are rituals that don't back down once they begin. If you made it all the way here with me, comment "haunted room" so I know. And if you enjoy stories like these, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next ones. There's always new material here, and every video takes you a little deeper. Leave your like too. It helps keep this cycle alive between us. Oh, and there's a video right here with more terrifying stories. Click it and come with me there too.